right, guys, joining the Outsiders podcast, very special guest today, Chiefs insider extraordinaire, Josh Looney. Josh, welcome to the show. Thanks for being on, my friend.
I guess I'm on the right show now. If it's the Outsiders podcast, I guess I'm not a Chiefs insider anymore. I'm one week removed, so I'm the Chiefs outsider now, so happy to be on, guys.
Oh, thanks for being on, Josh. Let's first start with your move to Indianapolis. I mean, how's that been going so far, working with Division II, NCAA? I mean, just how's that been?
Yeah, no, it's been different. It's been awesome. It's been fun. Obviously, a difficult decision to go ahead and leave the Chiefs. I was a former Division II student athlete, and I was approached by the national office of the NCAA to have a pretty significant role in their Division II athletics nationwide and helping build their identity with their student athletes and their presidents and their ADs. So I've been blessed with my career opportunities, no doubt. I worked for the Chiefs, a team I grew up cheering for, my hometown team, for 7 years, and got to meet a lot of awesome people, get to know a lot of great players, and now I get to kind of go back even more of my roots as a former Division II football player and work with those universities nationally. So it's been great. I've only been here a week, so it's that whole learning process. But Indy's a cool town. It's a lot like Kansas City, but I don't plan on becoming a Colts fan. So Chiefs fans don't have to worry about that.
Well, and that leads us kind of into our next point. Maybe you might look into that because the Colts do have the good young quarterback in there in Andrew Luck. But let's, we want to preview, of course, the Chiefs Saints going on the road to New Orleans this weekend, Josh. And starting 0-2, it's not been a good start. But just what have you seen so far, and how do you think the chances of going into New Orleans getting a win are?
Oh, I don't like them. I don't like their chances. I don't think I would have liked their chances if they were 2-0 and New Orleans was 0-2. If you've got a team that's got a home game and a quarterback named Drew Brees, and they're 0-2 and they're in a must-win, you don't want to play the New Orleans Saints. So I would like the Chiefs' chances if the Chiefs were 2-0 and looked like they were on top of the world. What's gone wrong with these guys? There's a laundry list of things so far. First off, I think it's surprising to everyone, whether you were a pessimistic fan heading into this season, whether you're the most optimistic. I don't think anyone saw and envisioned this team playing the way they did and being outscored the way they have the first 2 weeks of the season, not with the talent, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Matt Cassel's gotten the brunt of criticism, obviously. I don't think it starts with him. The defense has been the big surprise. I mean, this is a defense, let's remember that many, not just local writers and media guys, we're talking national. We're predicting this defense to be a top 10 defense. Eric Berry, such a key player to come back. He had a great linebacking group, and so far they've been torched, and they haven't been able to stop the run. They haven't been able to stop the pass. I think the defense is really where it starts with this Chiefs team, and going to New Orleans is going to be on the defense once again.
This offseason, I heard that Marty Schottenheimer was interested in the head coaching job, and Al Saunders was interested in the offensive coordinator job. Do you think we made a mistake promoting Romeo and hiring Brian Daboll?
Well, that's interesting. I actually didn't hear about the Marty job. I knew he interviewed with the Bucs. Internally, I didn't hear anything about him, at least more brought in or anything like that. And Al Saunders, yeah, they did kind of test the waters with him a little bit on the offensive coordinator front. When you go back to the way things happened last year, I really don't think there was a better option than Romeo Crennel. The players wanted him. They had a response. They saw a response from him. He won 2 of his 3 games, despite an offense that was historically one of the worst in Chiefs history, much less put them where they ranked in the NFL last season. They beat the Packers at home. Everything was clicking, so I don't think it was a mistake at all to promote Romeo Crennel as head coach. A lot of guys are much better in their second tenure, I should say, as a head coach. So I don't think that was an issue. I think back at the time there wasn't anyone. Very few people were critical of promoting Romeo. So now I think it's pretty easy to say, oh, well, it was the wrong choice when they're 0-2. I don't think that's the case back when they made that decision in January. As far as Brian Daboll goes, that's one of the biggest surprises for me on a number of fronts. I was very surprised when Brian Daboll got the position, first off, and not just because I didn't know a whole lot about him. And then, so I was like, okay, well, we'll see what this guy can do. And then when I get to know Brian, I honestly, from a football standpoint, fell in love with the guy and his philosophy, and I think he might have been the MVP all over the place. It looked like he had gotten a great response out of his offensive players. It was a game plan type of mentality, and found a role for Dexter McCluster finally. And I was like, okay, they've got the right guy at OC. So I actually like Dable. I like Romeo Crennel. I really like this coaching staff, to be honest, all the way from Gary Gibbs to Emmett Thomas. And that's the mystifying thing. Is I think they have a good coaching staff. I think they've got the talent to win games, but they're 0-2 and they've looked horrible the first 2 weeks. So there's some sort of disconnect there where either the players aren't responding, maybe they're not understanding what their assignments are. It's pretty mystifying. I don't think that they made the wrong decision with Romeo or with Brian Dable, but the results obviously are pointing otherwise right now.
What about just the organization? I mean, Jeff Fisher won't interview for this job. Peyton Manning won't come here to take a visit. I mean, can you talk about that and what's going wrong with this organization that we can't get a great player and great head coach in here to change this thing?
Well, I think you'd have to ask Jeff Fisher and Peyton Manning. Obviously, that's concerning on both of those players, and neither one come out and actually said why. And if they did, then we'd have something to talk about. But to say that that's not concerning, yeah, that is concerning. And yeah, I really don't know what that says about the organization, whether it's about Kansas City in general. And the Chiefs have been down really since Marty left. I mean, I guess you had some good years with Dick, but you didn't have any playoff victories. So the Chiefs have been down nationally for quite a while. So I don't know if they're thought of as a second tier program for when you have a guy like Peyton Manning or a guy like Jeff Fisher, and that opportunity comes available. Of course, Fisher ends up going to the Rams. So the Rams are better off than the Chiefs. I think most people would say absolutely not. Of course, he also has ties to LA, and the Rams might be a team that's moving to LA in 2 years. So that could be kind of the one of the reasons that Fisher chose them. I do think it's concerning, though. I don't know why they did it. It was Manning. It's even more surprising when you had an owner come out and Clark Hunt and said that he wanted to pursue Peyton Manning, and Manning doesn't even give him the time of day, especially with the offensive weapons the Chiefs had returning. It is a bit surprising. I know that, I don't know, maybe Manning wanted to do things his own way, and he didn't think he would have that opportunity with the Chiefs. But, yeah, I do think that is concerning. Why, I really don't know.
You talk about offensive weapons. One thing that's been kind of a mystery in the first 2 weeks to me has been the misuse or lack of use of receiver John Baldwin. I mean, this is a guy that looked really good at training camp. Of course, Dwayne Bowe wasn't in there for most of it, so he was kind of the featured option there at receiver. What do you think's going on with Baldwin, and why isn't he getting more snaps?
Guys, he hasn't done it in games. He hasn't at all this whole career, and that's the thing that I kept trying to say during camp, and when we were doing when Mitch and I were doing television shows, and when we were doing our webcast, John did everything he wanted him to do, and it was a great story during camp. He was phenomenal during OTAs. Okay, check that off the list. He goes in and he has a great training camp. Let's check that off the list. He went from the no pads to the pads, guys playing off of him to guys playing on him. Arizona came in town. He had another great day. So all those steps were there. Where was he in preseason games? He didn't have good preseason games. When the lights have turned on so far for John Baldwin, and it's been an actual game situation, he hasn't performed. And maybe that's part of something that he's just going to have to get over. Maybe it's going to take time with him. I don't know. He has the athleticism. He's shown it in practice. There's no doubt about that. That's not blowing smoke up everybody. The guy was the talk of training camp, internally, externally, everywhere. He showed everything on the practice field you want to see. He hasn't done it in the game, and that's not new. He didn't do it in games last year when he was healthy. He didn't do it in games in the preseason. He hasn't done it in games in the regular season. So I don't know. I think it's a stair-step process for him. I guess it is somewhat surprising when we look at the history. He's yet to perform in a game, and that's the next step he's going to have to do. And I think John's the type of guy that once he has a breakout game, I think you'll see some consistency. If he ever gets to that 6-catch, 100-yard game, or 5-catch, 80 yards, 2 TDs, I think he's the type of player that will build on that. He just needs to find it first, and so far that hasn't happened in his career.
I kind of wanted to talk about the depth over this team. I mean, during the offseason, there was a lot made that we signed some guys that helped the depth on this team. Other than running back, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I don't see a lot of depth. I mean, Brandon Flowers went out, and that was just a devastating blow. Our safety play hasn't been great. I think Travis Daniels should still be at cornerback. What do you see as far as depth on this team?
Well, the depth of safety is still much better than it was last year. They marched out 6 guys and started 6 different guys in safety, and none of them really performed very well except for Kendrick Lewis. I guess the saying the safety position, A.B. Elam's been a surprise to me. A lot of people have been were kind of freaking out that I talked to fans-wise and my friends and even some of the media folks that would say, "Oh, Kendrick Lewis is out," and I say, "Well, he's been a guy who's held this defense together last year and he's looked good, but I still view Kendrick Lewis as kind of a safety that you can start, a good safety, but he's not a game-changing player. He's a guy that you want back there, teammates like him, but you put him in, rank him in 32 safeties, I don't think he's going to, the free safety division is going to crack the top 10 anywhere, somewhere right in the middle of the pack, and A.B. Elam is a guy that can play both spots. He started 16 games for the Cowboys. I thought he looked good during camp and in the preseason. He hasn't performed very well so far in these first 2 weeks. Of course, no one on the defensive side of the football has, but I actually like what they've done at safety with Abe and moving Travis around. And Travis has played corner pretty much his whole career, and maybe that's his natural position. But I like what they did there. The thing that is interesting to me and has been interesting to me is Eric Winston's got a ton of love, and the Chiefs needed. They needed a right tackle more than anything, and more because of public perception. I mean, people were done with Barry Richardson. He struggled. Let's think about Barry Richardson. He was a 6th-round draft pick in 2008. You got 32 starts out of him. You won a game with him starting at left tackle on the road at Seattle in 2010. Barry Richardson wasn't the worst right tackle to ever come through this organization, but he looked that way. They needed to move around. Then they got a name guy in Eric Winston. Look at Eric Winston's stats last year, though. When it comes to pass protection, he gave up more sacks last year, at least credited to on Stats Inc. than Barry Richardson did. He gave up like 9.5, and Richardson was somewhere around 6. So I think people generally overlook that with the name Eric Winston. And the Chiefs are a running team, and Winston is probably the top run blocking right tackle in the league. But as far as pass protection, I thought he struggled a little bit this preseason. His numbers show he struggled in Houston with that. So it is interesting with the moves that they made. That's the crazy thing with free agency, in my opinion. It's in the NFL you can hit, but it's such a band-aid. You've got to build your depth through the draft, and if you want to look at depth, I don't think you look at free agency. You look at what is the 09 class right now for the Chiefs? There's not much there. How about the 2010 class? Where are they in depth? What about 11? The draft class is where depth is made. It's not all through free agency. And I think really when you look at depth, you need to go back and look at the draft class to see where those guys from 3-4 years ago are at. And a lot of them aren't here anymore.
Yeah, really good points made there about the draft classes. And before we let you go, it would be remiss, it may be cliched, but it definitely would be remiss if we didn't ask you about the play of our quarterback, Matt Cassel. I mean, this is a guy that we looked to come back and have maybe 2010 type numbers this year, and really with all the weapons he has to have a better season. The first 2 games it has not come to fruition. Maybe the first half at Atlanta, but what are your assessment of his play so far?
Well, first off, I think Matt is one of the most mentally tough people in that locker room. I like Matt Cassel as a person. As a quarterback, I'm not going to tell you he's a top 10 guy. He's a middle-of-the-road quarterback, but I do believe you can win with Matt Cassel. Matt Cassel is also a quarterback where if you have an opportunity to sign a guy like Peyton Manning, or you have an opportunity that comes up to draft a guy in the first round, you do that because Matt Cassel is a winning quarterback, but he's probably a middle-of-the-road quarterback. With that said, the mental toughness of Cassel, we all know he's taken a lot of heat in Kansas City. He's booed at the All-Star game. That stuff doesn't affect Cassel. What's been impressive to me about Matt, at least before, I've only been gone a week, so up until last week at least, in the locker room, he hasn't lost the respect of his teammates. They want to win from Matt. They love Matt. Now, what can Matt do to be successful? I think for Matt to be successful, the Chiefs have to get their run game going. I think he's at best when he's a play-action quarterback. He sells his fakes. He's very good when you have a solid run game. And it's not just because you're keeping defenses off balance, and that's part of it with Matt. But the other part is he can sell the play-action pass. And when the Chiefs aren't running the football and they're struggling to run, then Matt's probably going to struggle a little bit. And I think we've seen that off and on. And when you're a team playing for Pat's cut out to be that type of quarterback. The Chiefs aren't cut out to be that kind of team. And weeks 1 and 2, the Chiefs have been playing from behind, so you kind of have to abandon the run game a little bit. And I think that ultimately is what has affected Matt Cassel. If you see a tight game and you see the Chiefs running the football, I think you're going to see a lot better play out of that.
What do you think about this 3-4? Romeo came here. He kind of forced his system on these players and moved them around. Do you see people out of position, a la Glenn Dorsey, Tyson Jackson, Justin Houston, and Tamba Hali?
Well, Romeo didn't force the system on players. You could say Clancy Pendergast did or Todd Haley did. Romeo came in year 2 with the 3-4. And I think, in 09, it's like, trying to fit squares into round holes. You did move guys. But, hey, Tamba Hali was a defensive end, and now he's a stand-up outside linebacker. I think he's doing fine. Justin Houston has probably been, in my eyes, one of the best guys on a lousy defense thus far this season, so I can't say that he's playing out of position. The big ones are guys like Dorsey, and Quinn's a good player. He probably belongs in the 4-3. That's where he's it'll be interesting to see what happens with him, because he's going to be a free agent after this year. If the Chiefs don't re-sign him, I'd be shocked if Glenn didn't go into a 4-3 defense. With that said, I think he's performed well as a 3-4 guy, despite that not kind of being his specialty. He can play all across the defensive front. Tyson Jackson obviously hasn't lived up to a number 3 draft pick billing. The interesting thing about 3-4 defense, if you're going to run it in the NFL, is, and more colleges are going to it, but still it's not commonplace in the college game. You have to evaluate guys at their college position and then move them and predict how they're going to do at the NFL. It's hard enough to draft guys as it is and predict their futures when they're playing the position you saw them play. But in the 3-4 defense, you're projecting defensive ends to play outside linebacker, defensive tackles to play defensive end. You better have one heck of a scouting staff, and you better be on it, because I think it makes it that much more difficult to draft and develop defensive players when you run a 3-4 defense in the NFL.
Oh, absolutely. Josh, I tell you what, we're about out of time. We cannot thank you enough. Well, you've been gone a week, but you definitely haven't lost any Chiefs knowledge, I can tell you that.
Well, yeah, it was interesting. Last week was pretty different for me. I ended up flying to Indianapolis on Sunday night, and so I was able to watch the Chiefs game on TV. It was the first game I didn't travel or with the team or go to the games, and I tallied it up, and I made it 99 straight, so I was like, oh, man, maybe I should have gone and got my 100th game. And then when the way it happened in Buffalo, I was like, oh, I'm glad I'm not on that flight coming back. So, it's different, definitely not going through the Sunday routine, but I'm excited about my role at the NCAA, and, of course, I'll be following the Chiefs just like everybody else every week. You can't take that out of your routine. So I'll definitely be watching on Sunday, and hopefully they can give the Saints a run for their money.
Absolutely, Josh. Looking forward to it. We'll look forward to having you on again as the season progresses, and good luck up in Indianapolis. We really appreciate you being on today, man.
All right, guys. Take care.
Thanks a lot.
You too, Josh. Thanks.